The text came through just as I was pouring my second cup of black coffee. I was 64, comfortably settled in my favorite armchair, reviewing the grocery list for the weekend barbecue. I was supposed to drive over to my son David's house in an hour, bringing the premium steaks, organic vegetables, and a custom cake for my grandson's birthday. Stay away from my family, the message read. Useless people aren't welcome here. I stared at the screen. It was from Sarah, my daughter-in-law. For the past 4 years, I had ignored her subtle digs. She controlled the schedule, dictated how David spent his time, and treated me more like a free catering service and babysitter than a mother. I had tolerated it to maintain the peace, hoping things would mellow out. I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law. But this wasn't subtle. This was a clear, locked door. I didn't cry. I didn't type out a furious paragraph demanding an explanation. At my age, you learn that anger is just wasted energy. Instead, I smiled. A quiet, genuine smile of realization. I was free. I set my mug down on the coaster, picked up my phone, and opened my banking app. Sarah carried a credit card linked to my account. It was strictly for family emergencies. But lately, those emergencies included designer shoes and premium salon visits. I navigated to the card settings, tapped Deactivate, and confirmed. Next, I walked to the kitchen and began unpacking the grocery bags. The steaks went into my freezer. The cake went into my fridge. I poured myself another cup of coffee. 12 minutes later, my phone began ringing frantically. The caller ID flashed Sarah's face. She was at the upscale butcher shop downtown picking up the rest of the party supplies. I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. Hazel? Sarah's voice was tight, breathless, and laced with panic. The card is declining. Did you freeze the account? Hello, Sarah. I replied evenly. I wiped a spot of water off the granite counter. Hazel, the butcher, is looking at me. There's a line. I need you to unlock the card right now. We have 50 people coming to this barbecue in 3 hours. I can't do that, I stated calmly. What do you mean you can't? Did the bank flag it for fraud? No, I canceled it, I answered. I received your text message this morning. I am staying away from your family as requested. And since useless people aren't welcome, I assumed my useless money wasn't welcome either. Silence fell over the line. I could hear the background noise of the busy butcher shop, the murmur of impatient customers behind her. That text wasn't for you. She stammered, her tone shifting from demanding to defensive. I was texting my sister. We had a fight. I chuckled softly. Sarah, you literally typed, "Tell your son to come get his old junk from the garage," right before it. Unless your sister shares a son with you, I know exactly who it was meant for. Hazel, please, just turn it on for today. I'll pay you back. I promise. No, I said, my voice completely steady. Have a wonderful barbecue. I ended the call and switched my phone to silent. I walked out to my backyard and looked at my garden. The roses I had neglected because I was always rushing over to babysit needed pruning. I grabbed my shears from the shed. For the first time in years, my Saturday was entirely my own. But I knew David would be at my front door before noon. The doorbell rang at 11:15 a.m. I took my time wiping the soil off my hands before walking to the front porch. David stood there shifting his weight from foot to foot. At 34, he still had the habit of looking at his shoes when he was uncomfortable. Mom, he sighed as I opened the door. Can we talk? I didn't step aside to let him in. I stood in the doorway, drying my hands on a towel. We can talk right here, David. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, Sarah is a mess. She had to put back half the food at the butcher. She's crying in the kitchen. She says you canceled the emergency card. I did. Mom. You know how she gets when she's stressed about hosting. She didn't mean whatever she texted you. She's just overwhelmed. Could you just turn the card back on and bring the steaks over? People are going to be there soon. I looked at my son. He wasn't a bad person, but he was painfully passive. He chose the path of least resistance, which usually meant letting Sarah bulldoze everyone around her, including me. David. I kept my tone light but firm. I am not bringing the steaks. I am not turning the card back on. Your wife explicitly told me I was useless and not welcome. I am simply respecting her boundaries. You're blowing this out of proportion, he muttered, finally looking up. She's just stressed. Come on, don't do this today. I'm not doing anything, I replied. I am staying in my own home. Speaking of homes, I need my spare house key back. The one on your keychain. His eyes widened. What? Why? Because I no longer feel comfortable with Sarah having access to my house. I held out my hand. The key, David. David stared at my outstretched hand. He fumbled in his pocket, pulled out his key ring, and slid the brass key off. He handed it to me, looking entirely defeated. I'll tell the kids you're sick, he mumbled, turning toward his car. Tell them whatever you like. I closed the door. I spent the afternoon tending to my garden. Around 3 p.m., I received a text from my daughter Leah. Just saw Sarah's Facebook post about the ruined BBQ. What did you do? I laughed. Typing back, I stayed home. Leah replied instantly. Good for you, Mom. About time. The next morning, I woke up feeling remarkably well-rested. No early morning panic texts from Sarah asking me to rush over and watch the kids because she had a sudden errand. I made breakfast and thought about my own belongings. Over the years, Sarah had borrowed several things from my home. My heavy-duty carpet cleaner, an expensive set of outdoor patio heaters, and my grandmother's vintage silver cutlery set. She always claimed they looked better at her house for entertaining. I checked David's shared digital family calendar on my iPad. They were taking the kids to a soccer tournament 2 towns over and wouldn't be back until late afternoon. I picked up the phone and called a local moving service I had used before. Hi. I need 2 strong guys and a small box truck for about an hour this morning. Yes, just moving some items between 2 houses. At 10 a.m., I drove over to their house. I still had the garage code. I let the movers in. Within 20 minutes, my carpet cleaner, my patio heaters, and the wooden box containing my silver cutlery were safely loaded into the truck. I didn't touch a single thing that belonged to them. I only took back what was mine. I locked the garage behind me and drove home, leaving a simple sticky note on their kitchen island. Picked up my things. Hazel. The real fallout was about to begin. For 3 weeks, absolute silence. No texts from Sarah. No phone calls from David. I knew their strategy. Sarah had used the silent treatment on her own parents whenever she didn't get her way. She assumed that by cutting off my access to my grandchildren, I would eventually cave, apologize, and beg to be let back into their lives, checkbook in hand. In the past, it might have worked. I missed the boys, of course. But I refused to be held hostage by emotional blackmail. Instead of sitting by the phone, I joined a morning water aerobics class. I started having weekly lunches with Leah, who lived just 30 minutes away. I finished reading 3 books that had been gathering dust on my nightstand. My house was peaceful. My bank account was fuller. One Tuesday afternoon, while I was organizing my pantry, my phone buzzed. It was an automated email from the mobile provider. Your family data plan has reached its limit. I opened my account dashboard. The phone plan was in my name. I had added David and Sarah years ago when they were saving for a house, and I just never took them off. I looked at the data usage. Sarah's number was consuming 70% of the data. I didn't call to argue. I simply clicked on Manage Lines. I selected David and Sarah's numbers, paid the small separation fee, and converted them to their own independent pay-as-you-go accounts. I paid for the current month so their phones wouldn't shut off instantly, then removed my credit card from the automatic billing for their lines. They would receive a text notification from the carrier explaining the change. I closed my laptop, grabbed my purse, and headed out to meet Leah for coffee. I wondered how long it would take for Sarah to notice she was actually paying her own bills now. It took exactly 4 days. I was at the local nursery picking out new hydrangeas when my phone rang. David. I let it go to voicemail. He called right back. I answered on the second ring, admiring a deep blue blossom. Mom. David sounded exhausted. Did you take us off the family plan? Yes, I did, I replied cheerfully. I'm streamlining my expenses. You and Sarah are adults. It makes sense for you to manage your own utility bills. She missed an important work email because her data slowed down. You could have warned us. The carrier sent a notification 4 days ago, David. I paid for the rest of the month. You just have to set up your own payment method. It's not just the phones, Mom. He sighed heavily. Sarah went looking for the silver cutlery for a dinner party tomorrow and saw your note. She's furious you came into our house when we weren't there. I used the garage code and I only took my own property, I pointed out. Items she borrowed 2 years ago. We used those patio heaters, he argued, though his heart clearly wasn't in it. And now I will use them, I said. Is there anything else, David? I'm in the middle of shopping. Sarah says if you don't apologize for sneaking in and stealing our stuff, she's not bringing the kids to Thanksgiving. It was a classic Sarah threat. Isolate and conquer. That's her choice, I said smoothly. Leah and her husband are hosting Thanksgiving this year anyway. We'll miss you both, but I respect Sarah's decision. Tell the boys I love them. I didn't wait for a response. I hung up. I loaded the hydrangeas into my trunk. I felt a strange sense of lightness. By refusing to play the game, I was rewriting the rules entirely. And the best part was I still had one major card left to play regarding their house. The next morning, I was drinking tea on my porch when a silver SUV aggressively pulled into my driveway. Sarah stepped out, slamming the door. She marched up the walkway, her jaw set, designer sunglasses hiding her eyes. We need to talk, she demanded, standing at the bottom of the porch steps. Good morning, Sarah. Nice to see you. I didn't stand up. She crossed her arms. I don't know what kind of power trip you're on, Hazel, but it stops today. You don't get to just waltz into my house and take things. You don't get to just cut off our phones without talking to me. It was my house, my things, and my phone plan, I replied, taking a slow sip of my tea. I don't need permission to manage my own property. You are punishing us because of one stupid text message, she snapped. I'm not punishing anyone. I kept my voice perfectly level. You told me to stay away and that I wasn't welcome. I listened. I removed myself from your daily life, your home, and your finances. Isn't this what you wanted? I wanted you to stop hovering, she yelled. I didn't tell you to cut us off. Ah, I nodded slowly. You wanted my money, my catering, and my things. You just didn't want me. I understand now. Her face flushed a deep red. You are twisting my words. If you want to see your grandchildren ever again, you will put the card back on Return the Silver and apologize for trespassing. She thought she had the ultimate leverage, but a boundary is only as strong as your willingness to enforce it. I love my grandsons, I said clearly, but I will not be extorted to see them. You are standing on my property, Sarah. It's time for you to leave. She stared at me, shocked that I wasn't pleading. She spun around, marched back to her SUV, and sped off. I picked up my phone and called my property manager. It was time to deal with the house. What Sarah and David conveniently ignored over the last few years was the reality of their living situation. The beautiful four-bedroom house they lived in, located in the highly desired Oak Ridge School District, did not belong to them. It belonged to me. My late husband and I had bought it as an investment property years ago. When David and Sarah got married, they couldn't afford a mortgage in that neighborhood. I let them move in, charging them only a fraction of the market rent, barely enough to cover the property taxes and HOA fees. Over time, Sarah had begun referring to it as her house. She redecorated without asking, painted the brick exterior a trendy charcoal, and completely forgot who held the deed. I drove to the office of my property manager, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Brenda, who managed my other two rental properties. "Hazel, good to see you." Brenda smiled, motioning to a chair. "What can I do for you?" "I need to make a change regarding the Oak Ridge property," I said, handing her a folder. "David and Sarah are currently on a month-to-month lease paying the discounted family rate. I want to transition the property to standard management." Brenda raised an eyebrow. "You want me to take over the management of your son's house?" "My house," I corrected gently. "I want them placed on a standard 12-month lease, and I want the rent raised to the current market rate for that neighborhood." Brenda looked at the numbers in the folder. "Hazel market rate in Oak Ridge is nearly triple what they are paying you now." "I know," I said. "Please draft the new lease agreement. Send it to them via certified mail. They have 30 days to sign the new lease at the market rate or 60 days to vacate the property. All maintenance request payments and communications will go through your office from now on." Brenda smiled, a knowing glint in her eye. "I'll have it drafted and mailed by this afternoon." 3 days later, my phone lit up with David's name. I let it ring. He called again. I finally answered. "Mom, what is this?" His voice was shaking. "We just got a letter from Brenda's property management. It says our rent is going up by $2,000 a month. This has to be a mistake." "It's not a mistake, David," I said, quietly wiping down my kitchen counter. "I've handed the management of the property over to Brenda. It's too much for me to handle personally anymore. We can't afford market rent." He panicked. "You know we can't. Sarah's car payment alone is $800. We'd have to move." "Then you have 60 days to find a place that fits your budget," I replied. "The letter outlines all the options." I heard a muffled scream in the background. Sarah had clearly grabbed the phone. "You can't do this to us," she shrieked. "You can't kick your own grandchildren out of their home." "I'm not kicking anyone out," I said calmly. "I am offering you a standard lease on a house I own. If you cannot afford it, you will have to downsize. I have subsidized your lifestyle for 4 years, Sarah. You told me I was useless. I am simply removing my useless support." "This is illegal," she yelled. "It's a month-to-month lease," I reminded her. 60 days notice is generous. Any further communication about the house needs to go through Brenda. "Have a good evening." I hung up. I didn't block their numbers, but I put their contact notifications on silent. I walked into my living room, sat in my favorite armchair, and opened my book. For the first time in years, the heavy weight of obligation was entirely gone from my shoulders. The silence in my house wasn't lonely. It was beautiful. They didn't sign the lease. 2 months later, David and Sarah moved into a much smaller 3-bedroom townhouse in a less prestigious neighborhood. They had to trade in Sarah's luxury SUV for a practical sedan to afford the deposit. I didn't help them pack. I didn't pay for the movers. Brenda handled the entire checkout process, ensuring the house was left in pristine condition before returning their modest security deposit. The Oak Ridge house was leased to a lovely young family a week later at full market value, padding my retirement account comfortably. It took 6 months for David to reach out again. He asked if he could bring the boys over to a nearby park to see me. He came alone. Sarah stayed home. We sat on a park bench watching my grandsons climb the jungle gym. David looked tired, but grounded. "Sarah's still furious," he admitted, staring straight ahead. "But..." We actually have to budget now. We have to talk about our spending. It's been hard, but I think we needed it. You are a father, David, I said gently. You have to lead your own family. I couldn't keep doing it for you. I know. He sighed. I'm sorry, Mom. For all of it. Thank you, I said, keeping my eyes on the boys. There was no tearful reunion with Sarah. I didn't expect one, and I didn't want one. My boundaries remained firmly in place. I saw my grandsons on my terms in neutral spaces without opening my wallet. I spent my holidays at Leah's lively warm house. I traveled, I gardened, I lived. By simply walking away and locking the door behind me, I hadn't just protected my peace, I had finally reclaimed my life. And I was never giving the key away again. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that setting boundaries doesn't require screaming matches, long explanations, or bitter arguments. Sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is simply agreeing to step back and taking your energy, your time, and your resources with you. You can't control how people choose to act, but you absolutely control what you are willing to tolerate in your own life. Walking away from toxicity isn't giving up. It's just choosing your own peace. Have you ever had to make a tough decision to set a hard boundary with family? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so please share them in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.